today we are going to learn the limbic system. In today's session, we cover the only brief aspect of the limbic system. So you can write it down in the short note. In exams, you may have 5 minute time, 10 minutes time, 15 minute time, and you can cover up all the points related to the limbic system. We go in that way. Okay, let's start with the limbic system. Now, what is limbic system? What is limbic system? So the another name of this limbic system, it is a rhinencephalon. Another name of this system, it is a rhinencephalon, because when it discovered, it has a function with the olfaction. So it has a function with the olfaction. But as the time progress, as the research progress, we are come to know that this system not only related to the olfaction, but it has a very huge aspect of the functions in terms of physiology. It is related to the emotions, it is related to the motivation, it is related to the behavior. So it is related to the emotions, behavior of the humans, and the motivational drives. So these are the very important aspect of our life. Okay, so this limbic system, as the time progress and the research progress, it is we come to know that it is related to basically emotions, behavior, and the motivation. So not only the function related to the olfaction. Now another aspect, there is as the name of the system, that is a limbic system. So the limbic system, it is the meaning of this limbic, it is the borders. Meaning of this limbic, it is the borders. In Guyton, it is given that the limbic is meaning of it is borders. Another name is the limbus. Another concept, it is from where this name comes, that is a limbus. It is now this name suggests the name the form of the ring. The form of the ring. So this structure they arranged into the brain in such a way that they form the ring-like structure, or they form the borders. They form the borders. That's why the name of this system is the limbic system. So this was about the introduction of the limbic system. So in today's topic, in today's session, you should know all these things when we completed this session. That is the limbic system introduction that we have covered. Then unique characteristic of the limbic system. Then physiological anatomy of limbic system. The connections. In connections, you know, if you have read anything of the CNS, you know there is a connection, afferent connection and different connections. So the connections, among this connections, the Papez circuit is very important. Papez circuit is asked in the 2 to 3 sentence question, or it is also important for MCQ purpose. So the Papez circuit and the connections, it is a part of the connection, and the last one is the functions of the limbic system, and the last among the further, that is the applied aspect of the limbic system. So the applied aspect of the limbic system. So in short, the introduction, unique characteristic of limbic system, physiological anatomy, the connections, functions of the limbic system, and the applied aspect. So this thing you should know when we completed our today's session. We have covered the introduction of the limbic system. We see that it is basically concerned with the emotions, motivations, and the behavior of the person. So limbic system basically made up of the two structures. One is the limbic cortex, and another one is the subcortical structures. We will see it in the physiological anatomy. Before we see the physiological anatomy, we will see the unique characteristic of the limbic system, so you can get some more interest in this topic. So the unique characteristic of limbic system, it is two. The first thing, it has a very few connections with the neocortex. It has a few connections with neocortex. Whenever you heard the terminology neocortex, it suggests that the neocortex is very well developed, highly developed in the humans. It is whatever unique talent which is of human being. It is because of this neocortex, right? So we can say the very few connections of the limbic system with the neocortex. So whatever extra talent we have, the limbic system has a very few connection with this neocortex. as it is a very few connection with the neocortex, what will happen that the whatever emotions we develop in response to the any stimuli, sensory stimuli, we cannot on or off at our own will. Neocortex can modify the emotions, but you cannot make it like on or off. Like we switch on the we switch on, we there is a fan is on, but if it is not happen in case of the emotions. If you have any emotion develop in response to any sensory stimuli, so you cannot immediately turn off that emotion at your own will. You can modify it, but you cannot go on or off that emotion immediately. So that is because of this, there is a few connection of the limbic system with the neocortex. Neocortex can modify the emotions, but you cannot immediately on or off your emotions at your will. Okay, so that is the unique characteristic of the limbic system. Second thing, it is a prolonged after discharge. The second thing, it is a prolonged after discharge. So this is a characteristic feature. This is the characteristic features of the nerve fibers of the neurons of the limbic system. That is one of the property of the neurons or the nerve fibers on the limbic system that have a prolonged after discharge. So because of this prolonged after discharge, whenever there is a emotions, there is a motivational drive, so it will remain for some longer duration. Whenever we develop any emotion, so it remain for longer duration as compared to the another stimuli. Suppose if we feel the pain, feel the pain, we develop the emotions related to the pain, that is the unpleasant. That unpleasant sensation or the unpleasant the emotion we develop, it remains for longer duration. Even if the pain stimuli go away, but the whatever pain or unpleasant feeling you develop in response to the pain, it will remain for longer duration. So that is a characteristic feature of the limbic system. First thing, that is you can modify the emotions, but you cannot turn it on or off at your own will immediately. You can modify it, but you cannot make it turn on or turn off. Second thing, prolonged after discharge. Because of that, the emotion develop because of this because of any sensory stimuli, it will remain for the longer duration. And that is the characteristic features of the neurons of the limbic system. Now we will go for the next part, that is the physiological anatomy of the limbic system. Now which structures they form the limbic system? So the limbic system, it is made up of basically there are two components. The first one, it is the limbic cortex. Another name of limbic cortex, it is the limbic lobe. Limbic cortex and the limbic lobe. And the next one, it is the subcortical structures. Next one, it is the subcortical structure. So now what do you mean by subcortical structure? So our brain is made up of basically, our brain is made up of the cerebral cortex. Our brain is made up of the cerebral cortex. Behind this, there is a cerebellum. Behind this, there is a cerebellum. My figure is not so good. Behind this, there is a cerebellum. Then there is a brain stem. Then there is a brain stem which continue as a spinal cord outside the skull. So this one is the cerebellum. This one is the cerebral cortex. Here are the subcortical structures. Below this cerebral cortex, here there are the subcortical structures. And some of them, this subcortical structure, most of them are present in the brainstem. Brainstem, it is made up of the midbrain, pons and the medulla. So this subcortical structure and the limbic cortex together, they form the limbic system, and they arrange in that way, they form the ring-like structure, or they form the borders of the ring. According to guidance, they form the borders in form of the ring. In some book it is given limbus, it is a meaning of limbus, it is a ring. So they form that type of the structure. Now we will go through the figure of this limbic system. So you have to remember the structures which form the limbic system. Basically, it is made up of two components. One is the limbic cortex, that is the limbic lobe, and another one is the subcortical structures. Now this one is the physiological anatomy of the limbic system. The limbic system is made up of the limbic cortex or the limbic lobe, and the second one is the subcortical structure. Here you can see the both limbic cortex or the limbic lobe and the subcortical structure. First we see the which are the structure forming the limbic cortex or the limbic lobe. So here we start. If we consider if we go through the anatomy of the cerebral cortex. So the start with here, that is the orbitofrontal cortex. That is the orbitofrontal cortex, which is located on the ventral surface of the frontal lobe. Which is located on the ventral surface of the frontal lobe. So the orbitofrontal cortex. From orbitofrontal cortex, it goes to the subcallosal gyrus. It is located just beneath to it, just near to it. That is the orbitofrontal cortex on the ventral surface of the frontal lobe. Then it extends to the subcallosal gyrus. Then it goes to the cingulate gyrus. So you all of know the cingulate gyrus. It is the largest gyrus. It is located on the medial aspect of the cerebral hemisphere. It is located on the medial aspect of the cerebral hemisphere. The part of this is cingulate gyrus. From this nerve fiber of the limbic system, they also go from the cingulate gyrus to they passing behind the corpus callosum and downwards and go into the ventromedial surface of the temporal lobe. Ventromedial surface of the temporal lobe and into this parahippocampal gyrus and the uncus. Though this parahippocampal gyrus and uncus, these two structures they are nearer to the temporal lobe. These two structures they are nearer to the ventromedial surface of the temporal lobe, and this structure it is located near the frontal lobe. So you can see if you consider the cerebral cortex, it forms the ring like this. If you consider the cerebral cortex. If you consider the cerebral cortex like this, you can see from the frontal lobe, they form the ring in form of like this. Okay, so here the limbic lobe or the limbic cortex, they form the ring-like structure, and among this ring, they cover this subcortical structure. We will discuss just after finishing this. So remember the neocortex, remember the limbic cortex or the limbic lobe. It consists of this following structures. One is the orbitofrontal cortex, subcallosal gyrus, cingulate gyrus. Then it passes behind and it is a parahippocampal gyrus and the uncus. So these structures of the cerebral cortex, they form the part of the limbic cortex or the limbic lobe. See, limbic cortex, it actually acts as a communication linkage or the association linkage between the neocortex, which we told you earlier. It will act as a linkage between the neocortex and the subcortical structures. The main functions of the limbic system, it is basically through this subcortical structure. And this limbic lobe or the limbic cortex, it acts as a linkage or the association linkage between the neocortex and the subcortical structure. Though this has a connection with neocortex, it is very few, but it actually acts as an association linkage between the neocortex and the subcortical structures. Now we go to which are the subcortical structures that form the limbic system, or which subcortical structure are the part of the limbic system. Here, so there is a you have to remember that septum area, para-olfactory area, then thalamus, hypothalamus and amygdala. Thalamus, hypothalamus and amygdala. Here the thalamus, anterior nuclei of the thalamus, it is basically the part of the limbic system. Then hypothalamus and amygdala, it is a portion of the basal ganglia and the hippocampus. Okay. So these are the subcortical structure. Among this subcortical structure, this thalamus, thalamus, hypothalamus and the basal ganglia. These three are the very important questions for you. So you will learn definitely all the functions of all three in detail, and you will learn it also. So this function which are of these three structure, these among few of that function are also the functions of limbic system. So remember which subcortical structure that are a part of limbic system: septum area, para-olfactory area, anterior nucleus of thalamus, then hypothalamus and amygdala. Here the portion of the basal ganglia and the hippocampus. Here again I will tell you that among this structure also, the predominant role in the functions of the limbic system, it is of this structure. One is this anterior nucleus of thalamus. The second one is the hypothalamus, then amygdala, and the hippocampus. So this four structure, it is a must for you to remember. This anterior nucleus of thalamus, hypothalamus, hippocampus and the amygdala, these four structure has a major role in the functions of the limbic system. We will learn the each structure has specific function in one line. We will learn it later. Okay. So now we go through the next part, that is the connections of the limbic system. The connections of the limbic system. In the connection of the limbic system, basically the nerve fiber, they are interconnected. They carry the information from the one structure of the limbic system to another. Either they have the very few connection with the neocortex, or they convey the information to the subcortical structure. So among this, the connection of this limbic system, you have to remember this. So these are the bundle of the axons. They carry the information towards the limbic system, and few of them also convey the efferent, few of them also having the efferent connection. So you have to remember like that, the axons, bundle of the axons of the limbic system, or you can consider it as a efferent connection also, the bundles of the axons. Among this, you have to remember this structure. The one is a fornix, another one is this mammillothalamic tract, stria terminalis, then stria medullaris thalami, and the medial forebrain bundle. So you have to remember the five structures in the connections of the limbic system. That the bundle of the axons of the limbic system, they basically are the fornix, then mammillothalamic tract, stria terminalis, stria medullaris thalami, and the medial forebrain bundle. Among these five structures, which or among these five connections or five pathway, first among these five, the most important one is the medial forebrain bundle. You must remember among these connections of the limbic system, that is a two thing. One is a medial forebrain bundle and another one is a Papez circuit or the Papez model. Okay, so the Papez model is here. We will go after 2 minutes. That is a first here. Now you have to remember that is a medial forebrain bundle. This medial forebrain bundle, it basically important route of communication between the limbic system and the brainstem. In brainstem, it has a connection with the reticular formation. Both type of reticular formation, bulbar as well as the spinal to reticular formation. So important route of communication between the limbic system and the brainstem, that is the medial forebrain bundle. Rest these four structures or the rest four connections, they are either the connect the two structures of the limbic system, or they connect some with very few connections with neocortex. But the medial forebrain bundle, it connects the limbic system with the brainstem, and because of that, the whatever the response we have in response to the emotions on the cardiovascular system, respiration, our temperature, it is because of this connection, medial forebrain bundle. It is act as an important route of communication between the limbic system and the brainstem. Okay, so in short, you have to remember these five. Among these five, most important one is the medial forebrain bundle. Medial forebrain bundle. Okay. Now next the thing, that is the Papez circuit. Papez circuit is not related to the efferent or the efferent connection, but it actually basically the closed circuit of the limbic system itself. It is a closed circuit of the limbic system itself, and it is made up of this part. These are made up of this part. From this thalamus, from the cingulate gyrus, the information go to the hippocampus. From hippocampus by the fornix. See, here the bundle of axons, they interconnect the two structures of the limbic system. So from hippocampus to the mammillary bodies, from the mammillothalamic tract, this one is the second tract. This mammillothalamic tract carry the information from mammillary body to the internuclei of the thalamus. From internuclei of thalamus, it again go to the cingulate gyrus. From cingulate gyrus, it again come to the hippocampus, then to mammillary body and the anterior nucleus of the thalamus. See, these mammillary bodies are located just near to the amygdaloid body. So they are the structures in the vicinity. So basically, you have to remember this Papez model or the Papez circuit. Cingulate gyrus, hippocampus, mammillary bodies, anterior nucleus of thalamus, and go into the cingulate gyrus. So this Papez circuit, it has too much importance in the limbic system, and the one importance of this Pepper circuit, it is responsible for the resting EEG during the sleep. When we sleep, when we fall asleep, we take a sleep for rest, right? That is a resting of our body. Our brain is active at that time also. Actually, our brain is get energized during the sleep. Okay, so if you take the electroencephalogram or the EEG during the sleep, you will also record some waves. It is not like that when we fall asleep and if we take if we record the electric waves of our brain, so our brain is not silent. At that time, if we are taking the EEG, it also shows some waves which are specific for the REM sleep, which are some waves are specific for the non-REM sleep. So at that time, some electrical activity is taken place in our brain, and the whatever waves recorded during the sleep. So the sleep EEG, it is because of the neuronal activity taken place in this circuit. Okay, so remember that the Pepper circuit is responsible for the resting EEG during the sleep. It is responsible for the resting EEG during the sleep. So remember this thing, it can be asked in the MCQ. So at that point, remember this. Now we see the efferent connection or the efferent pathway of the limbic system. One function of the Pepper circuit, it is responsible for the resting EEG, and the another function, it is this Pepper circuit, it is responsible for those aspects of the emotions and the behavior that are specific to the individual and the individual species. So each animal has a different type of emotional behavior, different type of the behavior related to the feeding as well as the eating behavior, drinking behavior. So the each individual as well as each species has a different aspect of behavior, and so that behavior or emotional aspect of individual person and the individual species, it is decided by this Pepper circuit. That's why this Pepper circuit is important. Now the efferent connection of the limbic system. If we think about the efferent connection, then you should remember this pathway, and you should also observe that among the up to this level, this hippocampus and the amygdala, it has a two-way communication. Information go from the cingulate gyrus to thalamus, as well as it also go from the thalamus to the cingulate gyrus. So remember, the whatever sensory information and the emotion generated in response to that, it go from cingulate gyrus, then go into the thalamus. From thalamus, the structure below the thalamus, that is the hypothalamus. From hypothalamus information, this go into the amygdala and the hippocampus. So up to this level, you can easily remember from this amygdala and the hippocampus, the neuronal activity or the projection into the bulbar reticular formation. And from the bulbar reticular formation, you know that the reticular formation has a multiple functions in the postural maintenance, equilibrium maintenance, as well as the autonomic functions. So it is from this amygdala and the hippocampus, it goes into the bulbar reticular formation, then it goes to the spinal cord. So the whatever even sensory motor behavior in response to the sensory stimuli, it is also conveyed to this pathway. Now from hypothalamus, some information go to the bulbar autonomic center, and from that it go to the spinal cord. See, this bulbar autonomic center, it is responsible for the change in the heart rate, change in the respiratory rate, the changes in the vascularity, that the way of perspiration, changes in the blood pressure, okay, change in the temperature in response to sensory stimuli. It is because of this autonomic center, it has influenced by this hypothalamus, whatever sensory input is there. So you can see that if we think that very easily, when we have the sudden shock, immediately we feel that our heart rate is increased, our respiratory rate may increase. So all because of this. So remember the efferent projections of the limbic system from cingulate gyrus to the thalamus, from thalamus to the hypothalamus, then amygdala, hippocampus. From this amygdala and hippocampus, it goes to the bulbar reticular formation, and from bulbar reticular formation, it goes to the spinal cord. And from hypothalamus, it goes to the bulbar autonomic centers, and from bulbar autonomic centers, it goes to the spinal cord. So this is the efferent projection of the limbic system. Now, which are the functions of the limbic system? Now let's start with the functions of the limbic system. So the function of the list of the functions of the limbic system is here. One is the physiology of emotion. There is the second one is the physiology of motivation. The third one is the physiology of the autonomic functions. Fourth one is the regulation of the feeding behavior. Fifth one is the sexual function and the reproduction behavior. And the last one is the maternal behavior. Among this physiology of emotion, it is a separate physiological question, particularly for postgraduate students. Similarly, for physiology of motivation, it is also the separate physiology question. And the rest are the autonomic function, regulation of feeding behavior, sexual and the reproduction behavior, and the maternal behavior. We will go some detail of this, and we will this two functions in somewhat brief, because we will discuss this physiology of emotion and the physiology of motivation in detail afterwards. We will describe the anatomical structure of the limbic system, or the part of the limbic system which is plays a major role in the function of this. So remember that one word or the 2-3 structures which is related to the each function. Now physiology for emotion, you have to remember the extended Pepys circuit. For the physiology of emotion, you have to remember the extended Pepys circuit. So you can explain this physiology of emotions by remembering the concept of the extended Pepys circuit. Now physiology of motivation. In physiology of motivation, you have to remember the reward and the punishment centers. The reward centers and the punishment centers. Okay, so for the physiology of motivation, you have to remember the reward centers and the punishment center. For the autonomic function, there is a major role of the hypothalamus. There is a major role of the hypothalamus. Same for the regulation of the feeding behavior. There is again some centers of the hypothalamus, say particularly lateral hypothalamus and the ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus. It has a major role in the regulation of the feeding behavior. Now, in sexual and the reproduction behavior, again hypothalamus. So in this three functions, chiefly the function of the hypothalamus. So the sexual and the reproduction behavior, hypothalamus has a major role. In addition to that, in addition to hypothalamus, there is a role of the neocortex and the limbic cortex, and the piriform cortex overlying the amygdala. The piriform cortex overlying the amygdala. These two structures has an additional role in addition to the hypothalamus for the sexual and the reproduction behavior. Now for the maternal behavior, the portion of the cingulate gyrus, particularly located in the frontal lobe, it has a major role in the maternal behavior. So this was the brief introduction to the functions of the limbic system. Now we will see the each function separately. What is the physiology of emotion? Physiology of emotion. So first we remember what is emotion and what is behavior. So the emotions, it is an aroused state involving the intense feeling. It is involving the aroused state involving the intense feeling, autonomic activation, and related behavior which accompany many of the conscious experiences. So the emotion, it is an aroused state involving the intense feeling, autonomic activation, and the related behavior which accompany many of the conscious experiences. So that is the emotions. Now what is the behavior? So the behavior, it is an expression of the emotions. Behavior, it is an expression of the emotions. Now physiology of emotion, it is you can explain it by this extended Pepys circuit. Now recall the Pepys circuit. In Pepys circuit, there is a hippocampus, cingulate gyrus, anterior nuclear thalamus, and the mammillary body. Instead, we here write down addition of the structure, that is the association cortex, the amygdala, and instead of mammillary body, here we write down the hypothalamus, right? So remember that and add two more structure, this association cortex and the amygdala. Now what will happen whenever there is what is the function of this association cortex? Association area or the association cortex, they are responsible for the interpretation of any stimuli, like the verbal stimuli or the visual stimuli or any other kind of stimuli. So suppose I heard the word beautiful. So what is the meaning of that? So I can hear that word, but what it is it will stimulate reward center or the punishment center. It will create pleasant feeling or the unpleasant feeling. It is first it get interpreted by what is the meaning of this beautiful. It is good, bad, it is beneficial to me, not beneficial to me. So that is the function of association cortex. Suppose you are saying anything and you like the scene. So the scene, the interpretation, the visual pathway, it will project the scene. It will project the visual image. But the interpretation of that image, that is by the association cortex, and the emotions in response to that, that is the pleasant or the unpleasant, that is the function of this extended bypass circuit, or that is the function of the limbic system. So the interpretation of any stimuli is occurred by this association cortex, and the emotions in response to that, that is occurred by this limbic system, and you can explain it by this extended bypass circuit. So that is the function of physiology of emotion. I here again tell you, it is again the separate physiological question. So here only we say the neuronal basis of the genesis of emotion, that is the extended bypass circuit. So remember that in association cortex, information, interpretation of information taken place, it goes to the hippocampus. From hippocampus through amygdala it goes to the hypothalamus. From the hypothalamus it goes to the reticular formation, and from the reticular formation of the spinal cord as well as the bulbar reticular formation of the autonomic center. So it will affect the autonomic functions like respiratory regulation, the cardiovascular regulation, the gastrointestinal regulation. See, when we are in the stress, suddenly we also felt that there is increase in the heart rate, there will be increase in the respiratory rate. Sometimes we have increased GI motility, right? So these are the different manifestation because of this. Okay, the information also go to the thalamus, then in the cingulate gyrus, and it is remain circulated in this circuit and till the whatever action taken place by our body. So that is the extended bypass circuit. One more thalamic input, that is from the environment. It reaches to the sensory thalamic input. So in thalamus at some conscious level, some sensory information is conveyed, like the deep pain. So that information again go to the hypothalamus, and it will respond accordingly by autonomic centers or the sensory motor behavior. Suppose we see some danger, we find something, that is suppose there is a crackle sound, or suppose we found there is something coming danger, so we try to escape from that. So for that our motor action is required. So that now the physiology of motivation. So what is the first, you have to remember what is the motivation. So the motivation, it is a component of the behavior which is responsible for the accomplish the particular task. Whenever we have some motivation to do something, so that is the component of the behavior that is related to the accomplish the particular task. Now how we get motivated? So there are two ways by this we have the motivation. One, either there is a stimulation of the reward center, or either there is a stimulation of the punishment center. That can be elicited by the experiment which is known as a Hess experiment. I am again telling you that the physiology of motivation, it is again separate question. So you can go through some more detail in topic of the physiology of motivation. But here we are covering the aspect of limbic system, so we cannot cover entire physiology of motivation. So the main important thing, that is a stimulation of either reward center or the punishment center, in which you will place the animal in the cage, and the circuit is in a way that if the animal press one key, and the electrode are placed in the reward center. So by pressing that key, if the stimulation of the reward center taken place, the animal will repeatedly press that key. Okay, so the reward center, whenever we do something and suppose we like it, it is or there is a stimulation of the reward centers, we have a pleasant type of feeling, or the tranquilizer, like tranquility type feeling. So we feel relaxed, the feeling of complete relaxation. So we will do that thing repeatedly. So that is occur when there is a stimulation of reward center. So which are the main or the major reward center? That are the lateral hypothalamus with weak stimuli. If we stimulate the lateral hypothalamus with very strong stimuli, it will act as a punishment center. But the major reward center is lateral hypothalamus with weak stimuli, and the second one is the ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus. Right? Less potent, the reward center are also that there is a portion of basal ganglia, the septum, and the amygdala, but the role of that is not known and they are less potent. So here you have to remember these two things: lateral hypothalamus with fixed stimuli and the ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus. Now, which are the punishment center? The punishment center is a periventricular zone of the hypothalamus and the thalamus. So this is a punishment center. When there is a stimulation of the punishment center, it will create the feeling of the fear, anxiety, rage or shame rage. So these are the feelings which develop in response to the stimulation of the punishment center. So the escaping behavior or the fighting type of behavior, this all are the behaviors which are related to stimulation to the punishment center. So at this part you have to remember the definition of motivation, the reward center, which are the reward center, which are the punishment center. This periventricular zone of thalamus and the hypothalamus, that is a major punishment center, and the less potent punishment center are the amygdala, hippocampus, right? Again, and the lateral hypothalamus with very strong stimulation. So on weak stimulation lateral hypothalamus, it will act as a reward center. Now we will move to the next function, that is the physiology of the autonomic functions. Now autonomic functions or the vegetative functions. Vegetative functions, they are which are not usually under voluntary control, like the cardiovascular regulation, the respiratory regulation, gastrointestinal motility, regulation of the body temperature, regulation of the body fluid volume and the osmolality. So these are the different vegetative function, or we can also call the autonomic functions. Now how the limbic system affect this, or they regulate the autonomic or the vegetative function. So whatever the emotions generated, there is a major role of this amygdala. It will give signals to the hypothalamus, and accordingly cardiovascular regulation or the respiratory regulation or the gastrointestinal regulation taken place. We have also remember the extended Papez circuit. Whatever outcome, there is a major role, one addition in extended Papez circuit, that is of the amygdala, and from amygdala there was a signal go to the hypothalamus, and from hypothalamus it will reach to the bulbar reticular formation of the autonomic center. So it may increases the heart rate, it may decreases the heart rate. We also experience that from amygdala the signals go to the hypothalamus, from hypothalamus there is a signals go to the reticular formation, and it will regulate our the cardiovascular system, respiratory system and the gastrointestinal system. You will also experience that sometimes when there is a grief type of feeling, there is a decreases the heart rate. When we have the exciting feeling, there is a increases the heart rate, right? Sometimes we have the increased gastrointestinal motility. So these are all because of this, and you can keep in mind that the figure or the parts of the extended Papez circuit. So autonomic or vegetative function, they are regulated mainly by the hypothalamus, and hypothalamus had a major influence by this amygdala. Now the next function, that is the sexual and the reproduction behavior. That is the sexual and the reproduction behavior. Now in sexual and the reproduction behavior, there is a role of the two mainly. There is mainly the role of the hypothalamus, that you can say the neural control and the hypothalamic control. So in sexual and the reproduction, there is a role of two parts. One is the neural control and another one is the endocrinal control. See, in the neural control, we already know that there is and three anatomical structures of the limbic system has a major role. One is the neocortex. It is not part of limbic system, but the neocortex and the limbic cortex. Neocortex and the limbic cortex. Then pyriform cortex. Pyriform cortex overlying the amygdala. Overlying the amygdala. Right, and the third one is the hypothalamus. See, hypothalamus has a major role in all aspects, right? Third one is the hypothalamus. In endocrinal control, there is a mainly, it is by the gonadotropins, mainly by the gonadotropins, and the gonadotropins, they are under the control of gonadotropin releasing hormone, that is released by the hypothalamus. So endocrinal role, you know, it is by the gonadotropins, and the gonadotropins, they are under the control of gonadotropin releasing hormone, right? So this endocrinal control is also through the hypothalamus. Now the neural control, this limbic cortex is a part of limbic system. What is the role of this neocortex in the limbic cortex? These two, they are responsible for the partner seeking behavior. They are responsible for the partner seeking behavior. Partner seeking sexual behavior, right? So if we remove this neocortex or the limbic cortex, usually found that in females particularly, there is a decrease in the sex drive, right? So this neocortex and the limbic cortex, they are responsible for the partner seeking behavior. Now what is the role of this pyriform cortex which is overlying the amygdala? That is that it causes inhibition of the sex drive in male. It causes inhibition of the sex drive in the male, right? Now hypothalamus. In hypothalamus, most anterior and the most posterior part of the hypothalamus, it is responsible for the sexual behavior in both male as well as the female. It has a most anterior and the most posterior part of the hypothalamus. It has a responsible for the sexual behavior in both male as well as the female. Now we move to the next function, that is the maternal behavior, right? The maternal behavior. In maternal behavior, I have previously told you that the cingulate gyrus, it has a major role in the maternal behavior other than the hormonal, like the oxytocin and prolactin. These are the hormones that has a they are responsible for the maternal behavior, right? So oxytocin also known as the hormone of love. But other than the hormone, the cingulate gyrus, it has a major role in the maternal behavior. And maternal behavior, it is basically related to the breastfeeding and the protection of the her offspring, protection of her little one. So that is the maternal behavior. And the only one remaining function, that is the regulation of the feeding behavior. The regulation of the feeding behavior. Here there is a major role of the cingulate gyrus and the retrospinal cortex, that is almost related near to the frontal lobe. Okay, so the maternal behavior and the last next remaining, that is the regulation of the feeding behavior. Regulation of feeding behavior. So the regulation of the feeding behavior, there is a, again there are two centers. The one is the lateral hypothalamus. Remember the lateral hypothalamus, it is a part of the which center, with which stimuli? It is a reward center stimulation. So the lateral hypothalamus, it is responsible for the hunger. So if you felt hungry, so that was the function of this lateral hypothalamus. So the hunger, thirst, if you felt thirsty, so the centers with the osmolality centers, osmosensitive centers, or the osmos receptors present in the brain, there are, that is different physiology, but here there is a lateral hypothalamus stimulation. It is responsible for the thirst, right? Now ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus. Ventromedial nucleus. This ventromedial nucleus, it is responsible for the satiety. Decreases the food intake. If you are eating and if you felt, no, I don't want more food, so that is because of this ventromedial nucleus stimulation. So this ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus, that is responsible for the decreases of food intake, satiety center, and it also responsible for the tranquilizer feeling, that is the feeling of relaxation. So remember the reward centers. So this ventromedial nucleus is also the reward center. So this was the regulation of the feeding behavior, part of the limbic system, which is related to this feeding behavior, that is the lateral hypothalamus and the ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus. Okay, now we see in brief of the different component of the limbic system and the major role. Now summary of the different component of the limbic system and their major role. So we will start with the hippocampus. We will learn only 4 structures. One is hippocampus, amygdala, the hypothalamus, and the limbic cortex. These 4 structures we will go through that. That is the first we will talk about the hippocampus. The hippocampus, remember that it is hyperexcitable structure. Just remember hyperexcitable structure, right? The second thing, that is, it is responsible for the critical decision making neuronal activity. It is responsible for the critical decision making neuronal activity. So whenever there is any sensory input, it goes to the hippocampus, and hippocampus will decide that this is important or this is not important. If the hippocampus will consider that it is important information, then it will store to the long term memory. Then it can be stored to the long term memory. So we generally found that if there is a removal of the hippocampus, person cannot remember or learn the new things, right? So it is known as anterograde amnesia. Person remember the whatever the information present in brain, but after removal of hippocampus, he cannot remember the new information or the new learning, right? So particularly this is true for the verbal and the symbolic type of information. So hippocampus is a critical decision making. That's why we see that in our routine day we do multiple activities, but it is not essential we remember all this, because this hippocampus will filter that this information is not important. Once habituation taken place, once it become routine, you will not remember that information, right? So for any information to go into the long term memory, hippocampus is very important. It is act as a critical decision making neuronal activity, and it will responsible for the consolidation of the memory, or the consolidation of the consolidation of the information into the long term memory, right? Up to this up to the that level, that till the information is not going into the long term memory, up to that time the information remain present in hippocampus, right? And you can remember this peculiarity of this hippocampus, or the important aspect of the hippocampus, by that if you when you fall asleep, suddenly sometimes you experience that I don't remember anything when I fall asleep. It is because hippocampus require 5 to 10 minutes time to remember. Hippocampus require 5 to 10 minutes time to convert that information to some long term or some intermediate type of memory, right? So I will here I will give one tip, that whenever you read before going to sleep, take the gap of 5 to 10 minutes. So either you see anything, or you so now summary of the different component of the limbic system and their major role. So we will start with the hippocampus. We will learn only 4 structures. One is hippocampus, amygdala, the hypothalamus, and the limbic cortex. These 4 structures we will go through that. That is the first we will talk about the hippocampus. The hippocampus, remember that it is hyperexcitable structure. Just remember hyperexcitable structure, right? The second thing, that is, it is responsible for the critical decision making neuronal activity. It is responsible for the critical decision making neuronal activity. So whenever there is any sensory input, it goes to the hippocampus, and hippocampus will decide that this is important or this is not important. If the hippocampus will consider that it is important information, then it will store to the long term memory. Then it can be stored to the long term memory. So we generally found that if there is a removal of the hippocampus, person cannot remember or learn the new things, right? So it is known as anterograde amnesia. Person remember the whatever the information present in brain, but after removal of hippocampus, he cannot remember the new information or the new learning, right? So particularly this is true for the verbal and the symbolic type of information. So hippocampus is a critical decision making. That's why we see that in our routine day we do multiple activities, but it is not essential we remember all this, because this hippocampus will filter that this information is not important. Once habituation taken place, once it become routine, you will not remember that information, right? So for any information to go into the long term memory, hippocampus is very important. It is act as a critical decision making neuronal activity, and it will responsible for the consolidation of the memory, or the consolidation of the memory, consolidation of the information into the long term memory, right? Up to this, up to the that level, that the till the information is not going, till the information is not going into the long term memory, uh, up to that time the information remain present in hippocampus, right? And you can remember this peculiarity of this hippocampus, or the important aspect of the hippocampus, by that if you when you fall asleep suddenly, sometimes you experience that I don't remember anything when I fall asleep. It is because hippocampus require 5 to 10 minutes time to remember information. Okay, now next is important aspect, right, that was related to the amygdala. So the amygdala, this amygdala, it has a two subdivision. One amygdala. So the amygdala has a two subdivision. One is the corticomedial, and another one is a basolateral. This corticomedial part, it has a function with the olfaction. It has a function with the olfaction, and in the lower animals, this is very well developed. In the lower animals, it is particularly developed. In humans, it is also present, and it is has a mainly the function with the olfaction. Now, the second subdivision, that is the basolateral portion. So, it is very well developed in humans. It is very well developed in humans. So the whatever chemistry taken up by this limbic system, it is basically by this part, that is the basolateral part of the amygdala. Okay, so that is the well developed in the humans. Now, what is the main function of the amygdala? So the amygdala acts as a window. It acts as a window of limbic system. So what you have to remember related to the amygdala, that is what related to the amygdala, you have to remember that it acts as a window of the limbic system by which person see the place of himself or herself in the world. So it shows the person reality. It makes the person to feel the reality of the situation, what the situation of herself or the himself in the world. So that is the function of the limbic system. So it will act as a window of the limbic system through which person can see that the place of her own into the world. Okay, so in amygdala there is a behavioral awareness area. So that will do the function that your behavior is appropriate for occasion or not. If you behave something, but if it is appropriate or inappropriate, so that will decided by this amygdala. So the behavioral association areas present in the amygdala, they are responsible for the appropriate behavior related to particular occasions. So that is the peculiarity of the amygdala. Okay. Now hypothalamus. Actually, I myself. So what is the role of hypothalamus? We already talked so much about the hypothalamus as a part of limbic system. So now recall what you learned up to this level. So the areas of the hypothalamus, that is the lateral hypothalamus, the ventromedial hypothalamus, then the periventricular zone of hypothalamus. These are the portion of the hypothalamus related to the limbic system, periventricular zone of the thalamus, and the most anterior and the most posterior and most posterior part of the hypothalamus. So these are the four structures you have to remember related to the limbic system. So this will act as an association area for the control of the behavior. And you have to remember the three structures. One is the anterior temporal cortex. It will responsible for the gustatory and the this olfactory association. So it is related to the taste and the olfactory associations, right? This parahippocampal gyrus, it is responsible for the auditory association and the complex thought process association. So you have to remember this three structure, and the third one is the posterior cingulate cortex, that is responsible for the sensory motor association. This limbic cortex, it will act as an association area for the control of the behavior. So in that you have to remember the three structures of this limbic cortex. One is the anterior temporal cortex. It is responsible for the taste and the olfactory association, the gustatory and the olfactory association. So when you smell something, or when you taste something, so you have some feeling created, or you will create some feeling related to that. So that is the function of this anterior temporal cortex. Then the parahippocampal gyrus, it is related to the auditory processing, auditory association, and the complex thought processing association. The last one is the posterior cingulate cortex. It is related to the sensory motor association. Suppose someone said to you some bad word and you want to slap him or to slap her. So this slap, that is a sensory motor association. You create the feeling, you have some type of sensation and you want to slap someone. So that is the sensory motor association. So that is the function of this posterior cingulate cortex. So the limbic cortex, in limbic cortex you have to remember these three structures, right? So that was about the limbic system physiology and the applied aspect. Now we will see the applied last part, that is applied aspect of the limbic system. So you have to remember two things. One is the Clover-Bussy syndrome and the second one is anterograde amnesia. So this Clover-Bussy syndrome is important for the viva. It is also important for the 2 to 3 sentence question. It is also important for the MCQ. Okay, so remember this Clover-Bussy syndrome. What is there in that? It is demonstrated first in the monkey with bilateral removal of the amygdala, bilateral removal of amygdala, or the bilateral removal of the anterior part of the temporal lobe. So it will destroy the amygdaloid structure. Now what was the effects of that? So this is the effects, that the loss of the fear, person become fearless, extreme curiosity about everything. Second thing, the extreme morality. It means person whenever take anything into the hands, it will try to examine with orally. So it will excessive tendency to examine the things orally. So that is extreme orality. Then forgets rapidly. See, it cannot remember for the longer duration, so it forgets rapidly. Then the last one is the excessive sexual drive. So the sexual drive is so strong that person even try to copulate with the immature animals. This was demonstrated in the monkeys. So the applied aspect related to the limbic system, you have to remember that the Clover-Bussy syndrome. And the second one is the anterograde amnesia. That is just in the part of the hippocampus I told you, that is the anterograde amnesia. So that in anterograde amnesia, if we remove the hippocampus, person cannot remember or learn the new things, particularly related to the verbal and the symbolic information. Then we call it as the anterograde amnesia. So the related to the limbic system, you have to, this is must for you to remember these two things. One is Clover-Bussy syndrome and the second one is the anterograde amnesia. So this was all about the limbic system. Thank you. Last part, that is applied aspect of the limbic system. So you have to remember two things. One is the Clover-Bussy syndrome and the second one is anterograde amnesia. So this Clover-Bussy syndrome is important for the viva. It is also important for the 2 to 3 sentence question. It is also important for the MCQ. Okay, so remember this Clover-Bussy syndrome. What is there in that? It is demonstrated first in the monkey with bilateral removal of the amygdala, bilateral removal of amygdala, or the bilateral removal of the anterior part of the temporal lobe. So it will destroy the amygdaloid structure. Now what was the effects of that? So this is the effects, that the loss of the fear, person become fearless, extreme curiosity about everything. Second thing, the extreme morality. It means person whenever take anything into the hands, it will try to examine with orally. So it will excessive tendency to examine the things orally. So that is extreme orality. Then forgets rapidly. See, it cannot remember for the longer duration, so it forgets rapidly. Then the last one is the excessive sexual drive. So the sexual drive is so strong that person even try to copulate with the immature animals. This was demonstrated in the monkeys. So the applied aspect related to the limbic system, you have to remember that the Kluver-Bucy syndrome. And the second one is the anterograde amnesia. That is just in the part as a part of the hippocampus. I told you that is the anterograde amnesia. So that in anterograde amnesia, if we remove the hippocampus, person cannot remember or learn the new things, particularly related to the verbal and the symbolic information. Then we call it as the anterograde amnesia. So the related to the limbic system, you have to, this is must for you to remember these two things. One is Kluver-Bucy syndrome and the second one is the anterograde amnesia. So this was all about the limbic.